Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, doing my review for 1917. Now this movie, of course, just had its like full official release. They've been putting it out. It had like the limited release last year, and kind of at the end of December. I think it was mostly because Star Wars came out, and I heard that as long as you technically have it in theaters, you can go up for awards, which this movie definitely should. So I think that's why it did that. It was like, they wanted to do limited release, and then it was like, let's give Star Wars a couple of weeks and not be dumb. And then, boom, full on release. And I've been waiting for this movie. Honestly, this was one of those movies. Like, I'm not a big war film type person. And I was like, I remember seeing the trailer. The first time I saw this trailer, it was, I guess in case you haven't watched trailers, if you're one of the people that like stays away from all that, there's a particular scene, like the end of the very first theatrical trailer. I was like, I have to see this movie. Like just that scene alone, like everything else looked cool too, but just that scene alone, I was like, you know what, this is gonna be a good movie, and I had to check it out. And I was waiting and waiting, and I thought it came out last year, and I was like, oh man, the movie's out, because I started seeing much bigger YouTube channels reviewing it because they got the screenings and stuff, and I was like, cool. And I looked it up, and it was just nowhere to be found. I was like, what is going on? And I never noticed that it was limited release until I actually started looking into it, and I was like, crap, I have to wait for this movie to come out. So I was glad it finally came out. I went to see Star Wars. I did admittedly see it twice, and so I was kind of waiting. I was like, all right, 1917, let's see this freaking movie. And it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I think it deserves all the praise that it's been getting. It's the best film of the year, this and that. I think it's going to get some award. At the very least, I think this movie has to get an award for cinematography because it looks phenomenal. And that was one of the things I noticed in the trailer. Like just some of the shots just look good. You go through, they kind of make it like a one-shot sort of film. And I love that. That's always cool. It immerses you in it. The music is really well done because for the most part, it's kind of just absent. Like it's kind of just there. You barely even notice it until like a specific scene comes up and the music's actually loud. But for the most part, it's just like, so it's not 100% silent. Here's a little bit of music, and it just hums and this and that, and so it's just like tiny, and you barely notice it, and it's just the people. So I love the way they handled the music. I love the way they do the cinematography for it. The story is actually very cool. And for anyone who doesn't know just the simple plot of the story, two guys are basically told they have to get to a certain captain and be like, hey, don't do this because it's actually a trap. And they have to go insanely far, and they pretty much have one day to do it. And they have to go like through enemy lines and all sorts of stuff. And it's like go from point A to point B and just tell them, this is a trap. That's pretty much the whole point of the movie. And you just follow two guys as they figure out how the F do we get there and how do we survive as just two random soldiers kind of going sometimes out in the open pretty much. So fantastic film. Love it from beginning to end. And there's one scene in particular, and I'll talk about some of this stuff during spoilers, that it was probably like my favorite scene in the whole movie. But absolutely loved it. I thought it was really well done. All the actors in it do a good job. You have like some of the more well-known actors. They kind of just pop up here and there. And then our two main actors who have probably been in other stuff that I've just never seen. They both do a phenomenal job. So I really enjoyed it. But all in all, it's a really, really great film. It is filmed great. It sounds great. It's acted well. It's acted great. But it doesn't sound as good to say it's acted great. It's acted very well. But it's overall, it was a fantastic movie. I wouldn't mind seeing it again. It is 2 hours long. Just so you know, it's pretty much like, yeah, it's a war movie. It's like most war movies, I think, are always super long movies, and it's one of those. It's 2 hours, which doesn't feel that long if you watch Star Wars, if you watch like a lot of the Marvel movies at this point. Most of those hit like that 2 hour mark now anyway. So a lot of movies I end up seeing are about 2 hours. So I'm never, it never like stops me from going to see anything. But if it does, excuse me, I think this is a movie you should kind of get past that for, because I think it's worth it for that 2 hour experience. And I highly recommend. I feel like you have to see this in theaters. It's just the way it's filmed. It's just one of those movies where it's like you got to see it in theaters because it just won't have that same impact, because whether it is an actual battle scene where there are explosions and stuff going off, or it's just kind of a quieter scene, the scope of it is what makes it worth seeing on the big screen. Because even if it's just the two main characters, if they're just going through, you're kind of wondering like, all right, well, considering it's war, they're in World War One, is it actually safe here? You kind of look at stuff and it's a quiet scene, but you don't really know when something's going to happen, because they even talk about it like, well, we're kind of going across enemy lines here. Are there going to be people here? Should we expect them? Even if we're told this is the case, is that really the case? Will this happen? Will that happen? what's, and there's a lot to look at, because sometimes it's not just them, it's not just tighten it on the characters. It'll be a wide shot and you're like, well, is somebody gonna hop over that ridge? Are they gonna fall into something? Is a random explosion about to go off? You're kind of just stuck in it, and you just watch and you're like, all right, maybe this is a simple scene, but maybe something crazy is about to happen. So it's really good. Fantastic film. I highly recommend it. That's pretty much all I can say without getting into spoilers. So if you have not seen the film, if you have not seen the trailers because you like to stay away from it, this is where I'm going to get into spoilers officially. But go see the movie because I think it's absolutely amazing. Getting into spoilers, I want to talk about my favorite scene in this entire film, visually at least. It's the scene, and I totally don't remember anyone's name. If I'm being totally honest, it's Schofield scene. So it's the scene after he wakes up, when he gets shot in the helmet and he falls down the stairs, which was a really good scene. He wakes up and it's nighttime, and they have the window and the flares are going off, and it's like the way it lights up and the shadows like move during the scene. I just love that because I was like, that looks absolutely amazing to me, because the flares are going up and you just see the light as it like goes in this arc. It's just going over stuff, and so the shadows, it starts off one way because it kind of shoots up, and then as it sort of curves and it's doing its descent, the shadows start to move around, and so you see as it slowly pans up the stairs and stuff, you see the soldier that he killed, and the lights going down, so you see them, and then it kind of like shifts diagonally, and then of course the way they cut it, the camera like goes out the window. One of the amazing things they do, like the way they do the cuts where it's not really one scene and stuff like that, they did a great job with it. But I love that scene, like just seeing the flares and seeing how it looked, where it's like this destroyed town is like the only sense of actual light that's illuminating the city are just these buildings on fire. It's like I think 2 or 3 throughout the whole thing are like on fire, and then other than that, it's just flares going off, and he's just running, and then he gets shot at, and then he ducks down when the second or third, maybe it's like the third or fourth flare, and so he ducks down, and then he's just trying to make his way through. Love that scene visually. It was fantastic, but all the way throughout, it was really well done. I figured one of them was gonna die. I'll say that off the top. I thought it was gonna be Schofield, and it was honestly from the scene where he got the barbed wire. I think that was kind of meant to throw that off for people that would even think about it, because he cut his hand on the barbed wire, and then when Blake like bumps into him, his whole hand goes into a dead body, and I was like, well, he's dead because it's World War One. This guy is toast. So I assumed that was going to be the case, and I thought it would be, with it being 24 hours, they would kind of go through the motions, and then eventually it would just be that infected because he put his hand in a dead body. But that wasn't the case, and the way they handled it, and this goes into the stuff with the music and everything, the sound design. They had the scene with the plane. They take the guy out, and we find out that Blake ends up being stabbed by the German. And so when they're talking, and it's a fantastic scene. That might be my favorite scene overall, just because of the way it was handled. Because I just thought it was really, really well done. Like, I really enjoyed that scene. And so as they're going through, when they're talking, I think that's when the music's playing. And when Blake, like, actually dies, as soon as he dies, the music just instantly cuts. And it's, like, dead silent. And it's just, there's nothing anymore. But the music was playing when he's like, talk to me, like, tell me you remember. And as he's telling him, the music is playing in the background. And then once, Blake stops breathing, the music also cuts off, like, entirely. And then it's just dead silent again. And I was like, that's really well done. Because I literally didn't even notice the music, because I was just, in the scene. And then once he dies and the music cuts, I was like, oh, man, there was music playing that whole time. And it just didn't even register. It would just blended in so well. So I really enjoyed that scene. Just the visuals in general were amazing. Because I was, being the nerdy person I am when I watch movies, especially when I knew going into this it was supposed to be like it was a one-take film. I was like, I gotta find where all the cuts are. I have to like look and be like, all right, was that a cut? Was this a cut? Was that a cut? They did a really good job with it. Sometimes they do, CG wise, like there was one where they go past a rock, and I was like, that's definitely a new shot. And I forgot what the term is actually called, but it's something that you do where you just use an item as the thing that pans into the next shot. It's not like an obvious wipe or anything. It's kind of cut around this item, and as you move, that's where the new shot comes in. So I was like, that was an obvious one that I noticed. Other people might not. If you don't actually know that trick, you probably wouldn't realize that was even a cut. But that was one I noticed. Simple stuff, like obviously the one where it goes from day to night, that was like probably the most obvious cut in the whole movie. But man, it was just so well done. Like, I love the way they handled it. I feel like there's not much else to say. I don't really want to just go through the movie beat by beat. I just love what they did with it, though. Like, I love this scene, when he's in the town and he ends up running into this woman who's just protecting his baby, and so he happens to have the milk and stuff like that, and he gives him everything he needs, and then he ends up fighting the one dude who was peeing inside the building because he had to get away from the dude who was drunk. And I thought he was gonna like stab the guy after he choked the one dude out. I thought he was just gonna like stab him. That I think was one thing that was surprisingly missing from the whole movie, because there were a couple of scenes where I was like, I'm surprised he doesn't just have a knife, for some of the stuff he's dealing with. Like, if he doesn't want to carry a lot of stuff, just go with a knife. Because eventually, actually during that scene is when he pretty much loses all his stuff, because he pushes the drunk dude down, and that's when he's pretty much kind of abandoned like everything that's holding him back. Like, he dropped his gun, he dropped everything, and just he was gone. But I love that scene, and then of course him getting in the water, then he finds the troop at the end. But man, it was such a good movie. It was so incredibly well done. Love the visuals for it, and it felt oddly fast paced, because I was like, when I was in it, I was like, all right, I feel like I may have been here for a minute, but because it's kind of just when it feels like one long shot, you kind of sit in the moment a lot more. So it was like, man, it hasn't like jumped from here to here to here. It's kind of just you're going along in real time, so it feels a lot slower because you don't have the cut from, all right, we have to do this. Well, grab your stuff, and then it cuts from them doing that to they already, to them being outside having their stuff. You see them pick up everything. You see them fall, or if one person goes ahead and it sticks with somebody else, you see them catch up. And then it's like, all right, well, they're having this argument, like, hey, all right, let's stop. So you kind of really live in it a lot more. And oddly enough, you'd think that would make it feel slower, but not in the worst way, in the best way, if anything, because it was like, I couldn't really tell how long it had been, because you could literally count it. For the most part, you could pretty much count everything that they've done, by the minute, until, of course, it goes from day to night. So it was just really well done. Like, just the way it was handled, everything was seemingly one fluid motion. So you could go, aside from the scene after he gets shot. Aside from that, everything is just one clear motion, and you could just time it and just be like, all right, boom, the movie started. How long did it take before he got shot in the head? And you could time like at exactly this point. That's how long it took, because that's how they do the cuts and stuff like that. And it's just really well done. You see them as they go every single step. And it's just an amazing thing to kind of really think about that and just look back on it, because most movies would just be, all right, the explosion happens, it cuts to this hallway, they jump over the thing, they get outside, it cuts to some shot where they talk about it, then it cuts to the next shot where they're in like the little spot with the trees, then it cuts to them, being in the house. Like most movies, it would be like, oh, there's a house. You would cut from there. Most movies are just like, that looks abandoned. Cut, next scene they're at the door, or they're already inside the house. That's how most films work. And in this, you see them go through the whole process. You see them walk. There will be moments of silence where they don't talk. There will be moments where they do talk. They split up and they go, in and out of the house. And it was just really cool. And I just love that idea. So visually, phenomenal. Like, it better win something. It has to. I could almost guarantee this movie will win something. Forgot I left my arrow on, but I'm at the end of this review anyway. Love the movie. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. I don't know. There's not much I can really say. What did you think? What was the thing that stood out the most? I guess that's the best question I could really ask. What stood out the most for you in this movie? Whether it's one scene or just something that they did stylistically, if it was, throughout the film or whatever. What was something that was just like, holy crap, that specific thing is what you would kind of talk about first for the movie? For me, definitely the cinematography, but we'd love to know your thoughts on it in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.